In the heart of the old forest, where the wind whispered through ancient trees and the earth seemed to hum with forgotten tales, lived Amina. She was a woman of few words, whose beauty was like a hidden gem, only noticed by those who took the time to look deeply. But to the villagers, she was more than just a woman, she was a mystery. Her past was like a shadow, lingering in the corners of every conversation, never fully understood but always present. Yet, it was not the past that troubled Amina, it was the future. The future that had been written for her, and the future she feared. Amina had always lived a life marked by quiet strength and resilience. Her small, modest cottage on the edge of the village was both her sanctuary and her prison. Her days were spent in solitude, working the fields and tending to the few animals she kept. But deep inside her, there burned a longing for something more. She wanted to understand the world beyond the trees, the world beyond the small life she had carved for herself. She dreamed of freedom, not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional and spiritual realms as well. The villagers, however, had their own thoughts about her. To them, Amina was a figure to be pitied, a woman trapped by the weight of her past, a past that held secrets she could not escape. Her family had once been a proud one, their names spoken with respect. But something had happened long ago, something that had changed everything. It was a night marked by whispers that still echoed in the village, even after all these years. Amina had lost her husband in that tragic event. He had been a man of power, of influence, but also a man of secrets. Secrets that had led him down a dark path, a path that Amina could never understand. When he died, no one knew the true cause. Some said it was illness, others said it was betrayal. But the truth was far worse than anyone could imagine. He had been caught in a web of deceit, a web woven by those who would stop at nothing to see him fall. And in his fall, Amina had fallen too. Alone, grieving, and with nothing left, she had retreated into the shadows of her own life, haunted by the memories of what had been lost. Yet, Amina had not remained idle in her suffering. She had a son, a bright-eyed boy named Kofi, who had been her reason for living. She poured all her love and care into raising him, hoping that he might one day escape the shadows of her past. But as the years passed, she began to notice changes in the village, dark, unsettling changes. People who had once been kind began to act strangely, and whispers filled the air. Rumors of a powerful figure who had returned to the village after years of absence. This figure, they said, had knowledge of things that no one should know, knowledge that could destroy lives. This figure was none other than Mazi, the man who had once been Amina's closest friend and confidant. He had disappeared years ago, leaving the village in the midst of turmoil. But now he was back, and he had brought with him a darkness that Amina could feel in her bones. His return had not been a cause for celebration, it had been a cause for fear. Mazi had always been ambitious, always seeking power. But the path he had taken was not the path of a man who sought to build, but the path of one who sought to control. He had made promises to the villagers, promises of wealth, power, and influence. But what they did not know was that those promises came at a price. A price that Amina had come to understand only too well. Mazi had been the one to plant the seeds of betrayal in her husband's heart, and now he was back to finish what he had started. Amina had seen Mazi's influence grow over the years, slowly but surely, as he gained followers among the villagers. And with every step he took, the village grew darker. The light of truth seemed to fade, replaced by shadows of fear and suspicion. People no longer trusted each other, and the air was thick with tension. But what could Amina do? She had no power, no influence. All she had was her son, and she would do anything to protect him. But there was one thing Amina did not know, that her son, Kofi, had begun to ask questions. He had noticed the changes in the village, the way people looked at him and his mother with suspicion. He had heard the whispers, the rumors of Mozzie's return, and he had begun to wonder if the truth was as simple as it appeared. One day, as Amina worked in the garden, Kofi came to her with a question that would change everything. "Mother," he said, his voice trembling, "do you think Mozzie is the one who caused Father's death?" Amina froze, her heart skipping a beat. She had never spoken of her husband's death to Kofi, never wanted to burden him with the truth. But now, here it was out in the open. She could no longer protect him from the past, and the weight of her silence had become unbearable. "I don't know, my son," she whispered, her voice heavy with sorrow. "But I do know that we must be careful. Mozzie is dangerous, and he will stop at nothing to get what he wants." Kofi's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. But what if we could stop him? What if we could expose him for who he truly is? Amina's heart sank. She had never wanted to involve Kofi in the darkness of her past, but now it seemed that the past was coming for them both. She had no choice but to tell him the truth, the whole truth. "Your father," she began, her voice breaking, "he was not who you think he was. He was deceived, just like the rest of them. Mozzie's influence corrupted him, and in the end, it destroyed him." Kofi looked at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "But why? Why didn't you tell me before?" Amina's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to protect you, Kofi. I didn't want you to be burdened with the same pain I carry. But now," she paused, her voice trembling, "now, we must face the truth, or we will lose everything." And so, the battle began not just between Amina and Mozzie, but between Amina and her own past. She had to confront the darkness that had taken root in her life, the darkness that had consumed her husband and now threatened her son. She had to find a way to stop Mozzie, to expose him for the liar and manipulator he was. But Mozzie was no fool. He had been playing this game for far longer than Amina had realized, and now he was playing with her heart. He knew that she was weak, that she had a past she wanted to forget. He knew that she had a son who was vulnerable to his promises of power and wealth. One fateful night, as the village slept under a blanket of stars, Mozzie made his move. He came to Amina's cottage, his eyes gleaming with malice. "I know what you are trying to do, Amina," he said, his voice cold as ice. "You think you can stop me, but you are nothing. Your husband was nothing, and your son will be nothing too." Amina stood tall, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no choice but to face him now, to confront the monster he had become. "You will not control me anymore, Mozzie," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. "I will not let you destroy my son, or this village." Mozzie laughed, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "You think you can stop me? You are nothing but a fool. I have already won." But in that moment, something within Amina changed. She realized that she had been living in fear for far too long. She had been running from the truth, running from the darkness that Mozzie had created. But now, she understood that the only way to stop him was to face the truth head-on. And so, she did. With a fierce determination, she confronted Mozzie, exposing the lies he had spun and the dark magic he had used to manipulate the villagers. It was a battle of wills, a struggle between light and dark. And in the end, it was the truth that won. Mozzie, defeated and exposed, was cast out of the village, his power broken. Amina, once a woman burdened by her past, now stood as a symbol of hope for the village. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, she knew that her journey had just begun.